So that means you'll be in pairs. One person is going to lie down first and the other person's going to be the observer first. I'm going to part guide you through a little process, which means you won't be able to drink your cups of tea anymore. And when I see two people on one mat, I'll know when to begin, because I'll know you've all got partners. Well, you could sit on... Oh, you're going to... So we're going to do it's got 3 parts to it, I think, maybe 4-part process. But yesterday we were looking at what we could see with somebody lying on the side. So the first part of this process is going to be for one person to lie down and the other person is going to observe them, how they're lying on their back. So I'll tell you, so let's do that. I mean, some people like to know what's coming and how it links together, but let's just do that bit. You'll see how it links together very quickly, I think. So one person is lying and the observer stand at either their head end or their feet end. And you're going to look at their way of lying. So, and see, what do you notice? We were looking at shapes and heights and directions and angles and relationships. So if you had to sort of describe how they're lying, what do you notice? What do you observe? You could look at their legs, the direction that their legs are lying in, the direction of their feet, space between their legs, the shape of that space. Angle of their legs to their pelvis, or if you think of that imaginary middle line down the line of the spine and extend that through there, beyond their pelvis, down between their legs. Are both legs lying the same distance from that line, or is one leg closer to that line and one leg further away? You can notice how their arms are lying, direction of their hands, the angle from their torso, whether you notice the line of their arms. Is it long? Is the elbow bent? Is it straight? How their shoulders are lying, something about their relationship of their head to their shoulders, their head to their spine. So you're getting a general impression. And of course, people on the floor, yes, you're being observed, but this is not a judgment in any way. It's just an observation. So now people who are standing, some of you have already done it. You've gone to the other end. Please do that. So if you're standing at their feet end, go to their head end. If you're standing at their head end, go to their feet end. And just notice, do you notice different things? Different relationships? You could look at the relationship of their chin to their throat, the orientation of their face. And if you had to guess, what percentage of them is in contact with the floor? You're just going to have a guess. So now you're going to, we map ourselves out. We do a scan of ourselves. So now you're going to, now that you've observed them, you're going to use your hands to get to trace or sense their shape, spaces, to see what you notice with your hands about how they're lying. So it's not just about what you notice. It could be, it will be assisting the person on the floor to sense themselves. So explore. Use your hands to gather more information about how your partner is lying. So we looked at heights of different parts. How would you use your hands to feel, to get a sense of height in relationship to the floor? And shape. So Lockie had the idea this morning that he was a crayon. So one way that you might sense someone's shape is to trace their outline. And notice while you're doing this, can you sense your own breathing? When I ask you that question, did you change something? So always when we're working with somebody else, we want to pay attention to our own comfort, our own organization, because it directly impacts the quality of our touch and the communication we're giving to somebody else. So in particular, you're using your hands to sense how this person's lying. So I see so you want to find out something about their contact with the floor. And I can see some of you are exploring different places on the front side of themselves, on the front side of your partner, get a sense of their shape. Or maybe where they're breathing. So I'm just going to give you a minute more. Okay. So wherever you are with your exploration, could you take a moment to lie on the floor and see if you can recreate what in yourself, what you sensed about your partner's shape, organization with the floor? People who are lying, stay lying. They're coming back. They're coming back. So people who have been touching and exploring, people who've been lying are staying on the floor. But the people who've been touching are lying down to see what they can recall of what they touched in the way their partner, the shape they made, and the contact with the floor. So now, people who were touching, who've just lain on the floor for a moment, could you come back to your partner and in particular pay attention to the spaces and the places, the area of contact, and if you need to, and even if you don't need to, gather a little more information, because now you know what you're going to do. So how would you ask different questions with your hands of their spaces, of their contact with the ground? So the intention is you're gathering more information and you're going to do it again. So you're going to lie down again in a moment and try and reproduce or mimic your partner's way of lying. Maybe same, maybe different. Because maybe when you tried it out, something wasn't clear, you couldn't remember, or you didn't have enough information to shape it or organize it. So now you have another opportunity. Those of you who are lying on the floor being sensed, notice if the way your partner is touching you and exploring you has changed in the quality of their hands, the contact of their hands. Okay, so could you now, those people who've been touching, lie down and see what it's like this time to try and reproduce your partner's way of lying? And notice how that is for you. And now people who are on the floor, you could stand up and observe your partner. So people, stay in your way. Stay in your way of reproducing the other person's way of lying. Yeah. So that the people who were lying can see what someone's impression of them is. It doesn't mean it's accurate. Some parts of it may be, some parts of it may be not. But look from the feet, look from the head. Does it feel like you? Okay, now without talking, people who are on the floor, can you roll over several times? Any which way. Just roll onto your side, roll onto your stomach, roll left and right a few times. So in the rolling, find yourself and your own way of lying. So when you're ready to be yourself again, come back and lie on the mat. And now observe, no, let's hold the communication for a little bit. Because you'll have a chance to talk about it afterwards. But then you'll both have had the similar experience, the same process. So now observers, you're going to observe your partner from the feet, from the head. Maybe you want to check that you're not too close to another pair, so that when you are moving around your partner, if you were both to be on the same side, there's room. So see, if you were both on that side at the same time, you'd interfere with each other. Yeah? So give yourself a little space. Observe them from their head and from their feet. Take a few moments from each perspective And we're not necessarily looking for meaning in anything right now, but what is it that you observe? Angles, shapes, lengths, curves, directions, breathing, orientations. But maybe today you notice different things. But those things can give you a beginning place. So the first time you use your hands to scan them, you're wanting, the idea is to get a sense of their contact with the ground, which can be observable to a degree by through vision, but maybe you get more detail when you use your hands of about the shape of the spaces, the shape of the contact, the orientation of the limbs. So even though you know where you're going to go next, you're getting, you're helping the person sense their contact with the ground. Now, if it's uncomfortable for you to have your legs long, it's pleased to see someone did before, you can do this with your legs bent. But if you can have your legs long, please do. And those of you who are lying now, notice how it is for you to have someone communicating through their touch where you are in space, where you are in relationship to the ground. So you noticed yesterday, many of you, lengths and distances. Okay, so people who are touching, you can do your first approximation of trying to reproduce with yourself, but without too much difficulty or strain, how your partner is lying. And it gives you an opportunity to see, what did you capture in the detail or in the global organization. Do you need to change your breathing, your way of breathing, in order to lie as your partner was lying? Okay. Then you can come back and explore again which places weren't as clear for you when you did lie down, about the spaces and about the contact with the ground and any other elements. So you can have another 4 or 5 minutes. Again, people who are lying, observe the way your partner is contacting you. And you could think that your hands are saying, what happens here? How do you touch the ground here? Where is that? Where is your weight? How much is the pressure distributed over this place? Or how high is this space? What's the shape of this space? And how, people who are touching, how do you use yourself to gather that information? can lie down now and see how it is, whether you've gathered more information, whether how you organize yourself is a little different than it was the last time. Do you know a little bit more about your partner's way of lying? And notice how it feels. Where do you sense that you have to work somewhere to organize something? So we use ourselves as resources and as organizing ourselves as a means to understanding what somebody else is doing. Doesn't mean it's necessarily comfortable, but it's like trying it on. Okay, and let it go. And now you can talk for 5 minutes with your partner about what it was, the experience. First of all, what was the experience like for you to have yourself mapped out or scanned in this way? And then what it was like to do it with someone else and to try on the pattern. Yeah, shouldn't I have?
Should have a light on.
That's what I thought. That's what I was waiting. No light yet. Hmm? This one's flashing. This one, if that's not going to work. Can't get a green light.
This?
Yeah.
Well, that's the one.
What did you do?
I just took this in yesterday afternoon. I thought that was pushing it double adapter. No, it was just, I don't know, maybe it was just probably some of the Hang on, we've got no light. Try.
Yes.
Sounds.
And here, any comments or questions? Discoveries? Interesting things?
I was just going to say, it's just such a privilege to be able to look at people and touch. I don't think our society touches very much at all. So to be able to do that and observe the differences, it's a great privilege. It's really lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing as I've got the box,
Everyone to touch.
No, is it all right to talk about you? I think Lockie lies quite straight. But
So I'd rather than describing everyone describing their way of lying, what did you learn from that?
that there can be slight differences.
Left, right, or
Yes, and up, down as well.
great?
So, who would like the box?
Anna, okay. Next.
I noticed a difference in, or a discernible difference in what Mia, or how Mia's touch felt the first and second times with her intention of coming back to check something, I think, knowing that she would be imitating my lying down. So it felt more directed and more like she would pause over certain areas, like she was taking a snapshot. And the other thing I thought was really interesting was how quickly something changed. So Mia and I were talking about how when I was sensing her, I could feel a lot of her breath was happening up quite high, and I just had my hand resting lightly on her chest to confirm that. And then I turned away and did something else and came back and she'd changed.
Great. And then over to Anna.
It was interesting to note that we both found that our own perception of ourselves was not reflected in what the toucher perceived. For instance, we might have felt we had more of a space or less contacts in some spot underneath than the toucher perceived.
Mm-hmm.
There was something else as well. Oh, I was interested that I actually felt slightly bothered by Loretta's touch in a place where I feel I've got a, something that could be improved.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it, it drew my attention to it more.
Okay.
And my attention was already on it as I already perceived that.
Was it uncomfortable?
That I'm round, for instance, that I'm round-shouldered.
Oh, okay. So somewhere where you had an attitude about yourself.
I had an attitude already, and having my round shoulders explored really.
I might have spent too much time. I think as more people share, it will kind of said some things I was going to say, but we actually had the opposite experience to you guys in terms of found it fascinating for both of us, what we saw, what we felt did reflect the person's internal experience of how they thought how we thought we were lying.
Mm-hmm.
And that our actual internal experience felt stronger and bigger. Like I was kind of felt like, it's massive, but it was more subtle to look at and feel. And then affirming what Helen just said, that those, identifying with these physical things in the body, it kind of, by someone noticing them, it kind of, I felt more defective. It was just interesting. I was like, I feel like I got this deformed, it was interesting. So to have that experience of, if you're doing an FI with someone that may be highlighting that, there may be an emotional or an identification with that for someone. But I thought it was so amazing to then lie down and try and do it, because I physically couldn't really do it because my body couldn't quite lie like that. But to actually maybe have a go at that when you see people and to kind of feel what it feels like, I thought that was just such a valuable experience, the whole, the visual, the touch, and then to physically try and do it, and how we were kind of quite spot on, really.
Great. Thank you.
I learned how to put me in the feet of the other. I learned the different kind of touch could send me another kind of information. The premise was just go for a ride in a static position.
Mm-hmm.
Don't press, don't move.
Mm-hmm.
And these are very different. It's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to move, if you try to press, if you try to do something, you are giving information, and it counts.
Great, thank you.
What was really interesting for me was noticing differences, like noticing the spaces and what was turning and what wasn't turning, and doing it myself, the same as Chelsea was lying, is figuring out that, oh, there's more to this than meets the eye, that I picked up the first time. And going back, I knew what questions to ask in my exploration and found like a bigger picture of
Right.
what was going on. But also too, in having someone explore me, I noticed little subtle things that I'd never noticed before. And so that was really good. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
One of the things that I noticed was the tone, just the quality of the tone in different parts that you were sort of running your hand through. So, you know, some were quite soft and relaxed, and some were sort of had more tone to them.
Great. So it's one of the things that you can notice. So it sounds like that you, from what I've heard, if I generalize that you've had the experience that was intended through that experience to know, to recognize that what you think you feel about yourself isn't necessarily always true. What you think you might notice about somebody else could be different or more detailed, and that every way you connect yourself with someone, with your eyes or with your hands, will create a shift in their organization and will communicate different things. So to be, once you're aware, as you become aware of that, you can become more skilled at what is it that you're really wanting to communicate to this person. And trying on someone's, so becoming aware of where you leave gaps. So sometimes it's very easy to, where we move well, it's easier to copy someone. Where we move less well or less differentiated, it's more challenging to take onto someone's organization. But as a tool in FI and in ATM, if you can observe or use your hands to touch to find out more about what someone's doing and try it on, it can help your understanding of what they're doing and how they're doing it in a way that you can then take the next step at what you want to communicate or evoke as you get the skills to do so. Okay. Ready for some more ATM? Great. We're going to have a slide.